Hello everyone. With the success of the Radagast deck, I thought I'd do an extended digression into the other Fallen Wizards. And with that, I thought I'd start with Saruman, who is kind of, the iconic, the one that falls in the books. So, as with all of them, I think we should start by looking at the Fallen Wizard character himself and I've already pulled them up, the stage cards that are specific to that Fallen Wizard. Now, unfortunately, Fallen Saruman isn't great. His 27 GI plus DI are split to 15 general influence and 12 direct, which means that when you bring him out, you run a very real risk that you will lose some general influence, and if you can't if your parties aren't hanging around Isengard, where it's the only place you can play him, then you might even lose a character or be really constrained for general influence. He has a -1 to his corruption checks, which isn't great, and it makes him using the sorcery or the spells that you pull out of your end of turn pile or the Palantir that he can use all quite tricky because you have to constantly worry about corruption. He does have that you can get full points from non-weapon armor shield helmets, which does have its uses, but at least personally I do like especially weapons to help keep my characters safe. But this is what we have to work with, so we'll have to make the best of it. His individualized stage cards, on the other hand, are pretty good. So the White Hand doesn't do much on its own, but it's worth 6 points, so and it's not that hard to play. We'll need 12 stage points, we'll need 3 factions, we'll need a Strident Spawn and Saruman's Machinery. These two cards both are each worth 4 points apiece, so just having them out will give us 8 stage points. So just the two of those plus our starting 3, plus you need a protected Wizard Haven for both of them. So actually, Saruman's Machinery actually specifies Isengard or White Towers. So the point is, we have a very short chain to build up to the necessary stage points. A Strident Spawn helps us play half-orcs and makes half-orcs have cost one less influence to control. And Saruman's Machinery lets us play technology cards at the protected site in itself. We can protect the Wizard Havens with Fortress of the Towers or Fortress of Eisen. Now, while Fortress of Eisen would be a bit more book accurate, I'm thinking Fortress of the Towers because I have some ideas for using mostly overt companies. And if we want that, where did I put it? We can help get those by playing either the keys to the White Towers and the Barrow Downs or the keys of Orthanc and Minas Tirith. But if we're using orc parties, Minas Tirith is not exactly the safest place to go with huge automatic attacks. We have a few other specific cards, but to be honest, I don't think they are great. This would give us 2 points apiece for information resources. This one, all the Fallen Wizards get a card like this. It's worth a corruption point. It's worth a stage point. You tap it at the end of the turn to take one of 3 cards from your discard pile. Unlike the others, though, this one requires us to tap Saruman, and because of his corruption penalty, it's more expensive, quote unquote. This one's a little better. You can tap Saruman's Ring to take a ring item other than the one ring from your discard pile to your hand, and one of the cards with Saruman's many-colored robes is Ring Lore, so you could use it to keep cycling and playing Dwarven rings or something. Forge Master is a kind of stronger version of Wizard's Myrmidon, but requires a non-Hobbit Sage or a man. You're down to 2 points of general influence and gives +1 to his DI, and you can tap him to play some minor items. But since I'm not crazy fan. Sorry about that. Not a huge fan of minor items, so I would use this if you have the right characters for it, but the plan I have in mind doesn't really fit with it. And we got the keys. So what I'm thinking of is, as our 2 starting stage cards, we're going to have Bad Company, so we can play orcs and trolls, and half orcs are orcs for purpose, so we won't be able to really use a Strident Spawn without Bad Company to be able to play half orcs. And Hidden Haven. We are going to start in Ettenmoors and use the 3. I can never remember what they're called. There are 3 minion factions playable in the Ettenmoors: Hill Trolls, Stone Trolls, and Misty Mountain Wargs. And they all have this minion trick that if you play them with an orc or troll leader, you put them with that leader and it doesn't tap the site. So we basically sit down, we start with an orc or troll leader. I think a troll leader, because orc leaders don't get DI bonuses to troll factions. So I think Ulkar the Tongueless is the cheapest troll leader. And he's basically just going to sit in Ettenmoors for the whole game and play the factions. We'll give him a Blazon of the Eye to help him make those influence checks. We'll also have Halbarad and Eorith as our usual sages for playing Voices of Malice / Marvels Told, which again you're going to need because you don't want your opponent playing some sort of nasty anti-Fallen Wizard permanent event. Let's put... And all of you guys go to the sideboard, and we'll also include 2 long bottom leafs and 2 smoke rings at the very least to help pull things in from the sideboard. I'm also going to include 3 copies of half orcs and greater half orcs, again in the sideboard. These are factions, where are they? That you play at your protected wizard havens. They can be played at a tapped or untapped wizard haven, and basically when we get our places protected, we will simply sit there with Saruman and or Ulkar and just collect factions at basically no risk. I think like I said, I for just general geographic purposes, I'm going to want Fortress of the Towers, so that everything's a bit more concentrated in Eriador. And we'll have the keys to the White Towers. We get full points for it. You always get full points for stage special items anyway as a Fallen Wizard. And we can just, grab it in the Barrow Downs, take it to the White Tower, store it when needed, and you can use it to just pull Fortress of the Towers whenever we want. We can start with 3 other characters. We're going to have 6. So I think with 3 characters, and we've got the orcs and trolls, we should go for 2 scouting orcs, because scout orcs are like hobbits in the sense that if you have an orc with a scout, they count as half a character for movement hazard purposes. So I think we'll go with Ugluk, which is very thematically appropriate. And then I think Grishnak and what was that? Uthak. So the three of them, Grishnok can follow Ugluk as needed to save a bit on DI. Between them, we've got 2 rangers, 2 scouts. Everyone's a warrior. Okay prowess and a hazard limit of 2. I want some backup characters, but I want to think about them for who would be the backups. But the intended party will be Ugluk, Ulkar, Grishnak, one of Halbarad or Irith, and Ufthak, with the orcs ranging out for stuff that's not in the havens, and Halbarad and Ulkar hiding away. Let's put in 2 voices of malice before I forget about them. And so if we're going stealth, I think we could have Gollum as an ally. Even though we'd be with an overt party, we can go to Goblin Gate as a hero site and play Gollum there. And I think we'll also do... I can't remember Great Bats, which one is which with Great Bats or Regiment of Black Crows. Yeah, it's Regiment of Black Crows. Let's play it at Ruins and Lairs. And maybe the Bard King as another ally. I'm thinking we could play him at Austin Edel. If we're lucky, we could actually play both of them at Austin Edel, because that's got a wolf automatic attack. So right now we've got what we'll need something like Great Patron, I suppose. To make the characters now. That might go into the sideboard, but probably will actually. And unlike most decks, we actually don't need a whole lot of long chain. We play Fortress of Towers. We'll have 6 points, 6 stage points, and that'll be enough to get rolling on the other stuff. So there's no need to play Great Patron early to boost up our stage points, is what I'm getting at. And maybe Gatherer of Loyalties in the sideboard as well, because these are all worth 2. If we get them all, we can get another 3 stage points, and if we can't, well, we just don't pull it out of the sideboard. So I think 5 points worth of allies is fine. Theoretically, 6, and not actually sure if we get the extra marshalling points. I need to look that up, because Fallen Wizards generally don't get things that give extra points to other resources. We've got 9 faction points here. Now we are a bit light on items and maybe could use some more miscellaneous points. So I am thinking we could do Wizard's Trove plus Sapling of the White Tree plus the White Tree in the sideboard. That would be worth another 5 for relatively easily played cards. The thing is, I don't want to ever have to stray too far from my my Wizard Havens, but we could play this at Mount Graham. We could play the Sapling at Mount Graham. Yeah, I like that idea. Okay. Still want another couple of items. I'm thinking 2 Palantiri. Normally I'd like the Palantir of Osgiliath, but if I'm going to be using small, stealthy parties, we won't be able to move it. You need 4 characters for that. But we could bring this to store it. And we'll have the Palantir of Anuminius, or however you pronounce that. That would be another 8 points worth of items. Plus the Palantir of Annuminus we could use to help play the white tree when we get it out of the sideboard, which could be nice. Think. If we're, again, more for the sideboard, if we're going to have a Strident spawn, that lets us pull half-orcs from the discard pile. So let's just take a look at the half-orcs we've got. Hide the dream cards. This is for non-dream card. Okay, so let's put Durthak, Ulzog, and 2 ill-favored fellows in the sideboard. They're all worth points, so we could play them under Saruman's direct influence. Ill-favored fellow. Maybe include a few more as backups, but just backup characters, but I'll think about that. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think I would like another item or two, like useful items. Maybe it's just some broad-bladed spears. They're simple there. Not worth a lot of corruption points. It's a broad-headed spear. And also, because of the ability of Saruman's machinery, I'm also going to include 2 mechanical bows, but for the sideboard, with the idea that we will pull in some characters and they will just play them and possibly store them while not leaving the Wizard Haven. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items. Good. That's 12 points cards, which should give us a pretty good chance of drawing some quickly. And for our other starting minor item, I think I'm going to have a whip. Just to help save on general influence by allowing Ugluk to have more followers. I'm going to include 2 copies of No More Nonsense. The idea being that our leaders can bully around some of the smaller characters to get some more direct influence. It's like if Ugluk has this working on him and the whip, he'd be able to have both Ufthak and Grishnak follow him, which would mean we'd get the 3 of them for a mere 5 influence. With Saruman having so little general influence, I'm a bit concerned, because even if we pull that off, if we've got Ugluk, Ulkar, and one of Halbarad or Earith all on general influence, that's 11. That only leaves us with a 4 buffer. As for the rest, I think it should mostly be stealth cards. So we'll have I'm not too worried about corruption, since almost all of our characters will be overt and most of the items are intended to be stored. So I'm not going to include any anti-corruption card. Maybe I'm being a bit foolish here, but we do have a lot of sideboard stuff, so I'm going to include, weigh all things to a nicety, that's the minion version of Smoke Rings, just to be able to pull more cards out of the sideboard as needed. Now, so again, this deck, going back to some of the basic geographical principles, We can play the 2 Palantiri at Lossenden Cairn and Carndoom. We can play the Sapling at Mount Graham. Okay, the Broadblade Spears we will have to go a little bit afield for, to places like Heimring and the Isles of the Dead that Live. We play these at, well, this at any ruins and ruins and lairs we happen to visit. This will be at Holland. This will be at Goblin Gate, and most of the rest of, and this obviously at the Barrow Downs. And we end up with a setup where, if we consider the White Towers as our haven in Arthedain, and the Etten Moors as our haven in Rudar, we almost never have to go more than one region away from our havens, which I think will make movement very safe, especially with these low hazard limits we're going to be working with. So with that in mind, what sort of hazard strategy should we do? One card that I like, well, I don't use it very often because I'm often too worried about how it will affect my own movement, but No Way Forward. Okay, actually, let's start with the basics. We always want 3 rivers, and we always want Mouth of Sauron. But the card I was thinking about is No Way Forward. So this reduces your the ability of everyone to move, and since we don't need to move very much, well, what the hell. But that should also affect what creatures we include in this deck, because obviously you don't want to like load up on something like drakes or something that requires deep wilderness or lots of different environment types, so we have to be a little careful. And let's have 2 Doors of Night and 2 Twilights to protect it. If we're going to hopefully go, at least I'm hoping that this synergizes well. I'm thinking of a corruption setup. The main idea being that with No Way Forward, it's going to be hard for them to move like back to havens to store things, or back to get from one item to another. We can just gum up the works and give the corruption a longer time to work over enemy characters. Not 100% sure that quite works, but I'm kind of interested in trying it out. Problem is, so I've got 2 graders and a bunch of majors. Ordinarily, if I do, I'm not sure I want to do the corruption setup. I was thinking we could include one of the dragons. Maybe not though. Those are the at-home dragons. Itengast at home boosts corruption points of all graders, and it's either Scorber or Scatha does it for majors. But with me carrying some of these items, I don't think I want that. But I think we can still do a respectable corruption deck without it. We will, however, need some more. We need to have at least 12 creatures. So let's do Rend the Unclean as a Nazgul, because that'll count as the other half of this one. So we have 1. We'll need 11 more, and go with the mainstays: 3 assassins, 3 sellswords between charters, 3 cave drakes, and we'll need 1 more. We'll do not sure what to have as my 10th creature. think I'm going to actually move the Twilights to the sideboard. This isn't being that that environment centric. Come on. What is a good environment? A good creature hazard? I'll do a cave worm in case someone heads to the mountains. That gives us 10 corruption cards. Well, actually, I'm going to do 3 in unexpected outposts to help pull some hazards from the... Now, we've got a lot of hazards in the sideboard already, but we'll have 7 corruption cards. So I think we'll do 3 Lure of Expedience, 3 Lure of the Senses, and a Greed. And over in our sideboard, we'll include 1 The Will of the Ring, 1 Roll Down to the Sea, as a bit of insurance against 1 ring decks. And we'll have some more Call of the Sea. I think that's what it... Oh no, wait, that's the wrong one. I meant the Burden of Time. Elves are pretty common. I don't want to include Lure of Nature because it doesn't really synergize well with the No Way Forward, blocking people up. Don't really want to spare the Heart because I'm not likely to wound people too much. I don't really want Lure of Power because we're doing a lot of influence checks ourselves. What other lures are there? Lure of Creation. That's not great. Maybe 1 in the sideboard to mess up. I'll put in 2 Alone and Unadvised. Those can be annoying, especially to someone using small parties like myself. And we'll put in another, whoops. Okay, I don't think it actually added that in. We'll put in another Greed into the sideboard because that can mess up a party big time. And I'll put in 2 Traitors. Traitor doesn't... I do oftentimes think of Traitor as an overkill card. It makes someone who fails a corruption check attack the party. But I figure if we're doing corruption, may as well really make things hurt. And with that, I'm also just going to real fast copy over the sideboard from the other, the anti-Fallen Wizard sideboard thing from the other deck. Because I figure that's pretty general purpose. Okay, cool. And there we go. And we have ourselves... Oh, actually, no, there's one other thing we need to look at, which is characters. I do mostly want orcs and trolls. They're kind of play nice with each other. Basically, I want backups in case, for whatever reason, I don't get the characters I'm looking for, or something happens to them. You know, backups and the like. What I'm primarily looking for, though, is like the right skills with the right mind. So Lugdush, I think. We'll add Lugdush and Radbug. And any other trolls worth playing. Can't include Troll Chief. And most of them aren't really eligible. I do normally, like if I'm doing orcs and trolls, like including the 3 from The Hobbit, but with our hide in the Wizard Havens as much as possible, I don't think it really synergizes well with our... And we do have 4 backup characters here. Also going to include Watcho in the lineup. Probably, probably remove him from the game if we start with either Halbarad or Irith. But oh, where did Annalena? What the hell? This is from one of my other decks. Not sure how they got. Whoa, something is clearly... I seem to have copy-pasted my pool from the Radagast deck somehow. And the sideboard and the... Well, okay, I've at least talked through what I want, and if I don't save it, it should hopefully have the version that... Good. So let's go back to this. Only copy the stuff from here. Ratbug, and what was that other work's name? Lugdush. And here we have a deck that I think is now ready for some playtesting. Sorry about some of the yawning and the not sure what happened with that copy pasting thing, but hope you found this interesting and informative. And next video will probably be a playtest of this.